Hi, and welcome back to the shop. Glad to have you here with me. I've got a treat for you today. It's not too long a video, but it features an exceptional plane I think deserves a space in the Smithsonian, actually. All of the Russell Phillips planes, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Russell Phillips was the inventor. All of these planes were circa 1867 to 1872 to 73. There were some improvements on them, and I've set out some books and things for you to take a look at some of the pictures I'll show of some of the earliest of Russell Phillips' inventions, the plow plane. He started off getting his first patent, which was for a double marking gauge, but then the same year, 1867, he got his patent on a plow plane, similar to one of the ones in these books. And I should mention that these books are the P. Tampia books by Roger Smith, and they're an excellent resource for information on some of these rarer and harder to find planes. This one I very much lucked into last year in getting. I had been looking for one for a long time and admiring them at different tool shows, but they are not as common as the Stanley planes or even the Sargent or some of the others. So they're every once in a while you'll come by one for sale, and you squeak a little bit because they're kind of pricey, but they're so exceptional, and they're really a piece of woodworking history. And so I thought I'd share mine with you. Mine is not the earliest version of the Phillips plow planes. And you can see through some of the pictures that the earlier ones had more of a square frame, sort of like a bridge work, trusses and that sort of thing to control the stresses on the plane. And the one that I have is an improvement by a man named Matthias Mayo, who was probably an employee of the manufacturer of the earlier Phillips planes. So Russell Phillips, he came to Boston around 1870. He's listed in the Boston Business Guide as a carpenter, and he was just rooming at a house, so he wasn't too well established at that point. But he did already have his two patents, the first one being for that marking gauge and the second one being for the plow plane. Both of them were in 1867. One, I think, January, and the second one for the plow plane was in August. But he wasn't a manufacturer. He was really the inventor or designer of this plane. He had hired a company called Boston Tool Company and another company called Babson and Repellier, IER. And some people guess that Repellier was maybe the financier, the money aspect of it. And Harlow was possibly the machinist that supervised the manufacturing, because he's also listed. But Babson and Repellier were, I believe, either coal, I think it was a coal supplier listed in the directory. So I'm not the expert on these, and I'm sure there's somebody that's done a lot more studying, certainly Roger Smith and other people, and that's why I suggest if you can get these books, because these books will give you a lot of information, and not just about this one plane, but there are hundreds of specialized planes and inventions that people came up with, and if you like the older inventions and that sort of thing, these are definitely books to buy. They're, I believe, out of print now, but they're available on auction sites, and you can find them, and they're well worth having, just for the beautiful pictures, but also for the incredible information in them. So Russell Phillips was the inventor, and he invented these earlier versions, and then they were improved upon. He received a second patent, or a third patent. I'm sorry. He received two more patents for improvements to this plane later after that. And then a man named Matthias Mayo, who was an employee of one of these groups, he came up with an even further improvement, and he received a patent for that, and he is attributing, has the streamlining of this plane attributed to his design. And that was his improved patent was January 1st, 1872. So you can see all of this happened in a fairly short time between 1867 and 1872. And there were a lot of changes in the planes, as you'll see in those pictures. And I'll put them within the video so you can see what I'm talking about. But this plane in particular is the only one I have of a Phillips plow plane. It's not perfect, and there are some missing pieces, which I hope to find someday. But let me go over the plane with you and show you some of the features of it. It's really, really quite beautiful. This is all hand painted here, and here. It's a cast iron body. Here, the skate with steel pieces on the bottom. It has this oval imprint here, which is the original marking and is mentioned in these books. So that's correct. It's one of the few planes that have this double-sided depth stop in the front, which I think is really fascinating, and it means that when you come down, you don't have just one platform there to prevent you from going deeper, but you have two, which keeps that skate perpendicular to your work. I'm going to break here and come back and show you a little more close-ups and some detailing about it. I'll bring the camera in for you. I'm going to try to show you some other features about this plane, and it's a little awkward to be able to show you them, but you see this beautiful lyre shape in here that supports the fence here, and the fence itself, this has this little portion here. At one point they went all the way down, but this is a piece of rosewood. You can see the shape of it, and that's your little side handle, which I found very awkward to hold on to. Up here you can see the Mayo'S and patent improved logo hand painted inside this little square. You can also see on the plane that there's certain parts that are numbered. This has a 29 here, and there's a 29 on the skate as well, on the fence, I'm sorry, on the fence as well, to match up the two, because I suspect they were hand fitted to make sure that they matched. The escapement for the shaving here is integral in the hold down for the for your blade. So your shaving comes up through here and then automatically wants to curl out sideways, as you'll see when I use it later. The depth stop here is the one side, and here is the matching side. So you see there's a two-sided, and that goes up and down. And then I don't believe this is the original thumb screw. It looks like it's almost been handmade. I'd love to find an original, but I don't have it now. The other interesting thing is in here, you can see that the fence itself has a cutout, and that way your depth stop, when you move your fence in, it wraps around that depth stop and allows for the depth stop there, and that's why that's got that cutout there. Here would be another thumb screw for another missing piece, which is the rear depth stop that would fit into this groove right here. Unfortunately, that's another piece that's missing, but even incomplete, I think it's a fascinating plane. Now I'm going to remove the fence and let you see how this part works. So here you can see that the fence has some beautiful blue painting here. It's the only blue on it. There's the gold leaf here on the top. So when you loosen this, you can remove the fence, and it's got a key on the bottom running all the way down it that you can see there. The fence itself is interesting because these are the two screws here that hold on the rosewood handle on the side. The rest of this is all cast iron, milled. There's the number 29. And all of this area here is japanned. And then the lyre shape here has gold leaf on it there, and is really quite pretty. Now, putting this down, there's little cuts in the cast iron here so that when you tighten this down, it allows this to bend in a little bit. It's not terribly secure, and it's a little worrisome that this could eventually crack, but there are these two minor little grooves cut in it to enable that. Now here's the other part of this equation. So the rod is adjoined to the main body by this bolt and nut combination. I'm holding it tight here and to show you this, so I'm removing this section, and you can see that's a single piece, and here's the portion that comes through, and if I slide it back out, you can see that it's threaded there, and it has a matching number 29 here as well. So all of the main parts of the plane all match each other. The key is here, and inside here there is a groove to catch the key. So when I put this in, I can't put it in sideways. It has to be put in there, and that keeps it from pivoting. That locks that in, and then this piece here goes on the end and pulls this into it tightly and gets rid of any kind of motion there. So here we see the plane in profile. You see the depth stop there, and in here is the oval stamp of the Phillips patent with the dates and Repellier and Babson listed on the skate there. Some interesting parts about this. Now, this part of the handle was broken off. It extended further out originally. I haven't made a repair because I feel like it's part of the history of the plane, and I don't really feel this should be restored in any way. I think that the missing paint and everything else tells the story of where this plane has been, and that's very satisfying to me to have it all original. Now, like I mentioned before, this cast iron depth stop is also decorated with gold leaf around the outside border, and this portion here is gold leaf with red paint in here, and this originally had this gold leafing here and here along here, all hand painted and probably different on each plane because it had to be eyeballed by the artist that did the decorating for each one, so they were similar but probably differed a little bit. It's got a rosewood handle. And this is an interesting feature which I will take apart and show you. And another feature on this plane that's interesting is the iron or the blade. And let me take that out so you can see it. An interesting part of it is that it has this little rod that comes out the side here. And that's so you can hold it and adjust it up or down without and be able to tighten this without having to reach inside. So of course it's on the right side, so you'd have to loosen here with your left hand, slide the blade down or up as you like, and then tighten this off to a depth that you feel you're comfortable with. That took quite a bit of tweaking to get to use properly, because it really does not like making a terribly aggressive or a fine cut. So you have to find that middle of the road to where it's working very well. Let me show you the blade now. So to remove it, you just loosen this up, you slide this out. Here's the blade. There is a spring mechanism right here, a plate of spring steel you can see that goes between where the bolt and the blade will be to protect the blade from being marred by the bolt that goes through and holds it. And as you can see, when you release this, it springs back up to give you room to get your blade in. And when you advance this, you can see that that little flat piece starts to spring downward. Now here's the blade, and the blade itself is very interesting because it's double-ended. I'm holding it by the little rod that I was talking about. So you have a cutter here, and you have a cutter here. On the back of each cutter is this little V groove here, which fits onto this little piece that has been beveled on both sides there. So that keeps the blade where you want it. Now, what's interesting is that on the blade, you see here, that groove is not centered on the blade. So in this case, your blade is offset from being centered and actually sits a little further in this to the left side. And on the other one, on the other cutter, the smaller cutter, that groove is actually in line with the other, but because this has been milled out to create a smaller cutter, it's actually centered. So that's an anomaly about this cutter that is interesting. Another part is that it also has, you see it's in the shape of a macaroni chisel, which you can see is like a little shovel. And it's sharpened that way and this way, and then also sharpened on the back to create a virtual plow. These serve to cut the end grain, so if you're going across grain doing a dado, these would cut the end grain of the wood just ahead of the blade itself, of the plow. They are marked with sizes, and I don't know if this is the case, but here it says PPP stamped, and so that could stand for Phillips plow plane, but I don't really have the wherewithal to tell you that that's an absolute. The other interesting thing is that the size of the cutters here are marked in 1/16 rather than eighths or half. And here you have, here on this side, you have 8/16. So this is a half-inch cutter, but it's marked 8/16. And that may be because of Mayo and maybe a background in machining, because that's more of a typical machinist thing to use the 1/16 increments for more exactness.